slave, an abandoned child, a man who had nothing. No army, no money, no power, no name. Just rage and vision. And from that nothing, he built the largest empire in human history. Bigger than Rome, bigger than Alexander, bigger than Britain. One man, half the world. This is the story of Genghis Khan, and nothing you've heard before comes close to the truth.
1162 AD.
The Mongolian steppe, one of the harshest places on earth. No cities, no farms, just endless grassland, brutal winters, and tribes constantly fighting each other for survival. Into this world, a boy is born. His name is Temujin, and from his very first breath, the world tries to destroy him. His father, Yesuge, a minor tribal chief, is poisoned by enemy tribes when Temujin is just 9 years old. With the father dead, the tribe abandons the family completely. A woman, several young children, left alone on the steppe. No food, no shelter, no protection. They survived by eating roots, rats, and bark. Temujin watched his mother fight every single day just to keep her children alive. That image, his mother's strength in the face of total abandonment, never left him. Then it gets worse. A rival tribe captures young Temujin and forces him to wear a wooden collar, the mark of a slave. He escapes, alone, in winter, on the steppe. He should have died. He didn't. Because Temujin had something no enemy could take from him, an unbreakable will to survive. And one day, that will to survive would become a will to conquer.
As Temujin grew, so did his reputation. He was fearless, strategic, loyal to those who were loyal to him, and absolutely merciless to those who betrayed him. He made alliances, married a woman named Borte, who was kidnapped by a rival tribe shortly after their wedding. Most men would have accepted the loss. Temujin went to war. He called in every favor, built a coalition, attacked the tribe that took her. He got Borte back, and in doing so, he showed every tribe on the steppe what kind of man he was. A man who never abandoned his people. Tribes began to follow him, first dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. He did something no Mongolian leader had ever done before. He broke the tribal system. Instead of organizing his army by family and tribe, where loyalty was always divided, he organized it by pure merit. The best fighters rose to the top, regardless of birth, regardless of tribe. Loyalty was to Temujin, and Temujin alone. In 1206 AD, at a great gathering of all Mongolian tribes called the Kurultai, Temujin was declared ruler of all Mongols. He was given a new name, Genghis Khan, meaning universal ruler. He was approximately 44 years old, and he was just getting started. The Mongol army that Genghis Khan built was unlike anything the world had ever seen. Every single soldier was a horseman, born on horseback, trained on horseback, fighting on horseback. They could ride for days without stopping, eating dried meat and drinking horse blood when necessary. They were the fastest army in history. While European knights in heavy armor moved slowly, Mongol cavalry covered 100 miles a day. Their weapon of choice, the composite bow, could fire accurately at full gallop from 300 meters, further than almost any weapon of the era. But what made the Mongols truly terrifying wasn't just speed and skill, it was psychology. Genghis Khan understood that terror was a weapon. Cities that surrendered immediately were spared, protected, even allowed to keep their leaders. Cities that resisted were annihilated. Every man killed, every building burned, every wall torn down. Word spread across Asia like wildfire. When the Mongols are coming, open your gates. Many cities did exactly that, surrendering without a single battle. Genghis Khan had figured out something profound. The most efficient conquest is the one where no one fights back. The conquests began. First, northern China. The Jin dynasty had walls, had millions of soldiers, had fortresses that had stood for centuries. The Mongols had never fought siege warfare before, so they learned it, capturing Chinese engineers and forcing them to build siege weapons. Within years, the greatest fortifications in Asia were falling. Then, Central Asia. The Khwarezmian Empire, modern-day Iran, Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, was one of the most powerful empires in the Islamic world. Its Shah received Genghis Khan's ambassadors and had them executed. It was the worst decision in the history of that region. Genghis Khan's response was total and absolute. Cities that had stood for 1,000 years, Samarkand, Bukhara, Merv, were erased from the map. Merv alone, once one of the greatest cities in the world, lost an estimated 700,000 people. The Shah fled across his own empire, chased by a Mongol force, and died alone on an island in the Caspian Sea. The message to the world was clear: there is nowhere to run. By the time Genghis Khan died in 1227 AD, the Mongol Empire stretched from the Pacific Ocean to the Caspian Sea, the largest contiguous land empire in history. And his sons and grandsons kept going. Genghis Khan's death didn't slow the Mongols. If anything, it accelerated them. His son Ögedei took over and launched invasions in every direction simultaneously. Russia. The Mongols swept through Russian principalities like a hurricane. Kiev, one of the greatest cities in medieval Europe, was destroyed so completely that travelers reported bones covering the ground for miles. Poland and Hungary. Mongol armies rode into the heart of Europe. European knights, the finest heavy cavalry in the Western world, were destroyed at the Battle of Legnica in 1241. Europe panicked. French King Louis IX wrote letters preparing for the end of Christian civilization. The Mongols stopped, not because Europe stopped them, but because Ögedei died and the generals had to return home to choose a new Khan. Europe was saved by an accident of timing. Then, the most devastating blow of all. Baghdad, 1258. Baghdad was the greatest city in the world, capital of the Abbasid Caliphate, home to the legendary House of Wisdom, the greatest library and center of learning in human history. Mathematics, astronomy, medicine, philosophy, centuries of human knowledge preserved there. Genghis Khan's grandson, Hulagu Khan, arrived with his army. The Caliph refused to surrender. The Mongols destroyed everything. The House of Wisdom was burned, books thrown into the Tigris River, so many that the water turned black with ink. Historians estimate 800,000 people died. The Islamic Golden Age, one of the greatest periods of human intellectual achievement, was over. In just 50 years, the Mongols had changed the world forever. But here is what most people don't know about Genghis Khan. He was not just a destroyer. He was also, in many ways, one of the most progressive rulers in history. He established religious freedom across his entire empire, at a time when Europe was burning people for heresy. He created the first international postal system, the yam, allowing messages to travel across the empire in days. He opened the Silk Road, creating safe trade routes from China to Europe. For the first time in history, merchants could travel from one end of Asia to the other without fear of bandits or war. This period, called the Pax Mongolica, the Mongol Peace, lasted nearly a century. It allowed an unprecedented exchange of goods, ideas, and culture between East and West. Some historians argue that without the Mongol Empire, the Renaissance in Europe might never have happened, because the flow of ideas from Asia to Europe was only possible under Mongol protection. He was a man of extraordinary contradiction, unimaginable destruction, and remarkable vision. History rarely gives us simple villains, Genghis Khan least of all.
But no empire lasts forever. The Mongol Empire's greatest weakness was the same thing that made it powerful: its size. After Genghis Khan died, the empire was divided among his sons, then divided again among grandsons. Each piece became its own kingdom: the Golden Horde in Russia, the Il Khanate in Persia, the Yuan dynasty in China. These kingdoms began fighting each other. The unity that Genghis Khan had forged through sheer personal force could not survive without him. And then, in the mid-1300s, the Black Death swept across the Mongol trade routes. The very Silk Road that had been the empire's greatest achievement became the highway for history's deadliest plague. By 1368, the Mongols were driven out of China. By the 1500s, the last remnants of the great empire had faded into history. Gone, but never forgotten. Genghis Khan started with nothing: an abandoned child on a freezing steppe, a slave in a wooden collar, a boy who should have died 100 times before he turned 20. And from that nothing, he built the largest empire the world has ever seen. He killed tens of millions and connected the world like never before. He destroyed civilizations and created the conditions for new ones to rise. He is the most consequential human being who ever lived, and most people know almost nothing about him. Now you do. If this video gave you something, like it. It genuinely helps this channel more than you know. Subscribe for more deep dives into the greatest empires and figures in human history. And tell me in the comments, could the Mongols have conquered Europe if Ogedei hadn't died? I'll see you in the next one.